Welcome back to the Jimmy channel. So today's project, we're going to continue the quest to get some heat away from this 2015 Harley Ultra. So if you've seen my channel before, you know I'm a bit of a constant critic that Harley doesn't make a fully liquid cooled motorcycle. This is the twin cooled bike that has the small head liquid cooler, which helps for sure, but it relies a lot on air movement. So part of the challenge here, I live in the state of Maryland, it's 97 degrees today, and you go out and ride and you're sitting on a rocket that's burning, right? So in the past, I've done several things and they've all helped. This bike has a Vance & Hines fuel pack, which I have used a stock map from Vance & Hines. I highly recommend it. And I've gone ahead and done the auto tune, built a custom map where I certainly have seen a slight heat reduction because it's just more efficient. And last year I went ahead and I installed Harley's power flow unit, which is right there, which is designed really when you're sitting in heavy traffic. You turn that thing on and it is a very powerful fan. It blows that heat, sucks it right into this intake down towards the ground, getting that heat away from that back cylinder, which is of course nestled there with that rear header pipe that roasts your leg in hot temperatures. And it does help for sure. I find myself using it even when I'm not going slow. I just turn it on and let it do its thing, and it does definitely help. The other thing that's critical in summer, obviously on your front fairing, you want to make sure you open up those side vents. That really inhibits or prevents that heat building up there. Gives you a lot of flow that helps cool these cylinders here. So the project we're going to embark upon is a new product that's out there that is designed to do some insulation on these pipes here, the heat shields that we'll have to take off. So I haven't quite laid them all out yet, but here the stuff is. Kind of looks like space shuttle stuff. It's made by this company here, Design Engineering. It's specific to the bike. And in essence, what you do is you remove the heat shields, as you can see in this picture, and you put these pre-cut insulators, two pieces. One's like a felt cloth type heat resistant material, and then these space shuttle looking things that are supposed to deflect the heat, and you fit them on into each one of those heat shields nice and neat on the inside, so that heat, instead of it coming off of the pipe and getting to the heat shield, which heats up, and I'll give you an example of how hot it gets in a little video before I take it apart, and you'll be able to see if there's going to be a reduction. So once I get them all off of there, I'll do a couple little snippets so you can see what's involved in terms of take these heat shields off, fitting that stuff in there, putting them back on. A couple things that I think about. So the heat's not going anywhere except back towards the pipe, right? Because it's not really dissipating the heat, it's just insulating the heat. So for my money, I still think it's a good idea to get a fan in here, because you got to get that heat out of there somehow. Even though my goal here is to try to reduce how much heat's coming off these pipes, which will help not cook my leg. At the end of the day though, I need to move that heat away from the engine to keep the bike running as cool as possible. And this thing here definitely helps. So I think this is just another factor in trying to reduce heat in the bike. I'm not so sure that it would do anything totally by itself. When you're up and cruising at 50 and 60, sure. I mean, it's pushing that heat right out of there. So this just helps all the way around. So I'll have some more as we go through, and stay tuned. All right, folks. I'm going to give you a little data here before we get into this project. This is my 2015 Ultra Limited, and I'm using the Vance & Hines fuel pack. You can see here I've got the bike up to operating temperature, about 219 degrees. That's the upper right hand corner there. It's going up, sitting there idling. I usually operate between, say, 200 and 230 based on what the current temperature is outside. And if I look now, I've got an infrared thermometer. I'm trying to get a good reading to see where I sit. Looks like about 140 some degrees, give or take, on that rear that fan running down to cool the bike down. So I'm going to lay out the rest of that stuff in terms of this insulation for these heat shields, and we'll come back. All right, folks, so I decided to get started here. There's the first shield I took off. It's just held on by hose clamps. So I labeled them so I know which one's which. So you can see you got to take them, loosen them all the way up to disconnect the clamp, and it just pops right off the pipe. And I'm going to clean it up a little bit before I start the process here. But looking at all the pieces you see here, I think the hardest part's going to know which piece goes in what. So I got that one off there, and I went ahead and came over to the other side of the bike, got that crossover piece off here, right here, same deal, right? Hose clamps, just take them all the way out and just pops right off. You can see when it comes time to put it back together, you're going to be able to see exactly where they go, because they get a little wear mark there where they overlap. So I'm going to take them all off. I think I have a total of 6 shields and 7 pieces, because I think this one here must be a 2-piecer there. When I took this bottom shield off, that screw fell out. I remember looking for that screw when I did this catch can. I lost one of those. Never could find it. I just found it. Been in there the whole time. So I'm going to take them all off. Couple things. I think it's imperative, since you've got to put it back together, note which way these things sit in here, right? I think I'm going to go ahead and put like a marker which end it's got to go in, because it looks like they alternate based upon where they come from, because you got to be able to tighten them down nice and snug. So just a little trick there, make sure you mark them. Now I'm going to mark each one where they came from, just so I'll know where they come from, get them all laid out, and then start insulating. All right, I'll be back. All right, we're moving right along. So I've got 5 out of the 6 off of here. I thought I'd stop for a minute to show you this. So I'm just numbering them as I take them off, and then I'll do them in reverse when it goes to put them on. So I'm down to the last one, which is the front header cover. So it looks like there's no sense in me trying to fight this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop this running board off of here, give me a little clearance. I don't think I'm going to have to take the brake off, but we'll see when I get to that. What I've been doing here is I'm just using, it's an 8mm. In most cases you get them with a long, couple of them I've been forced to use the shorty, and then once I get them loose, you can just use the old screwdriver and get them off. Like I say, it's got to take them all the way off of there, and they just slide right off. You can actually see kind of where the brackets end up going when it's time to put them back in. So I'm building the puzzle as I go, just trying to isolate which one goes where. Still in a little bit of quandary on that very first one. It must be this one, but it sure looks kind of funny. But we'll see once I get them all out. One recommendation that I got is when you go to try to fit them in there, use the white insulator first. Just put that in there and make sure it fits right, and then you do the routine where you curve the tabs over and you actually form the space shuttle looking stuff in there. But I'll show you that when I get to that point. All right, let me keep going. All right, so I've got them all off of there. Like I said, take that footrest off of there. It's a lot easier. You don't have to take off the brake. I'm telling you about how I was marking those things as I took them on off, right? So that was number 6. I noticed I had a kind of a hard time with this number 6 getting these 2 top ones off, and I swear I think they have the brackets in the wrong way, because when I took them off of there, I had to unbolt them from the bottom side here rather than the top side here. So I'm going to reverse those 2 when I put them back in. The bottom one was good, pointing down, but this one here and this one here were both pointing down, which of course the fairing's kind of in the way. I was able to get up in there with an extension socket and loosen them up and take them off, but they'll be a whole hell of a lot easier putting them on from the top side right here, you know. So I've been kind of building them as I go along, meaning which one goes with what. So I think that's the hardest part. This top one, which is the biggest, is definitely a two-piece thing. So the only one I'm a little concerned about is the very first one, because that shape sure looks kind of funny to me. There's only one knockout lists those two triangles, and there's two of them in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do what they said. I'm gonna use the white fabric piece, make sure it fits in there right, and then I'll show you how to do one in terms of how you wrap it with the space shuttle like stuff, and that way you just follow suit with the rest. So it's easier, so I think for sure take them all off, just like you see here. Lay them out as you go, bend them and mold them on in there, and then put them back in reverse order. I've gone ahead and I've got them all numbered, so it ought to be easy to do it. So okay, here we go. All right, it is definitely the right one. So this is what I was saying. So put the white stuff in there first and make sure it kind of fits in there right. You can see that I used the kind of these bracket cutouts as the guide. So that way you know this is the right one. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build this thing and then mold it on in there. All right, I only got two hands, so I can't do it all. So all these clips do is go on the back side of that cloth. So this was the way it was going in there, right? So I fitted it first, and then I went ahead and I put the space shuttle stuff and clipped it on there. And all I'm going to do is conform this to the inside of that shield, obviously bending this aluminum heat resistance thing. All right, so let me put it in there and I'll show you how it looks when it's finished. You definitely need at least two hands. Okay, so at the end of the day, that's what you end up with. So I had marked, if you can see that, I had marked the edge with some black marker, what side the bracket had to go back in. So you just kind of Play-Doh it in there. And they say as you put them back on, you might have to, you know, push and pull here, because when it's sitting up on the bike, you want any of this stuff sticking out of there, but should be pretty clean. There's actually ample room to kind of maneuver that stuff around in there. So that's it. Just got to do that with all of these. It's the same kind of thing, and then I think I'll build them all and then put them back together, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of heat reduction I get. So stay tuned. If I run any problems putting it back together, I'll shoot a quick video. If not, once I get it together, I'll fire it up and do a temperature check on it. All right, see ya. Okay, so I'm putting these things in the heat shields. In the instructions, it says it's a good idea to use a pick. I don't know if you can see this. So I had marked them, if you can see, which way they go in. And like it said, you just conform them in there kind of like Play-Doh. And what I was doing with it is if you go ahead and you stick it in there, right, to get it started, if you get on the back side of this thing with a pick, I don't know if you can see that, and you kind of pry it up as you push it in. And what you're doing is just working that clamp over that material, kind of like so. And obviously it's very important as you take these things apart, mark which way they go back in so that they fit on the bike back the same way. That's what that black mark's for. I just got to build this top part one here, and that'll do it. We'll have them all together. All right, thanks. Okay, so I've got them all built now. I just got them numbered 1 through 6. You can see they all fit in there actually very nice. This last one, which is the front header, it's a two-piece deal. There is a void there where you have that opening. Obviously you got to have those clips just to kind of hold them in place before you cinch them up. The only one I see that looks like it might be a little bit big is this guy right here. I'll see, that's the number 4, which is that crossover pipe. So it might sit up on the underside and be hidden anyway, but if not, I can just probably take a pair of tin snips and scissors and trim that back. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting them back together probably tomorrow. And if I run across anything funny, I'll let you know via do another snippet. If not, we'll put her all back in and do the heat test. See you soon. All right, so I'm putting these things on. Believe it or not, they go on easier than they did getting them off. So the only trick I'd say, I just got one left to go here. When you adjust your clamps, adjust it so that they're all the way in the throat of the bracket, like that. So you have all of this to play with to get around the pipe. You do that, they actually just pop right around. You just got to start that clip with your fingers, turning it. I'm putting them on all loose to make sure they all line up properly. I'm going to come back and tighten them all. So moving good though. All right, all buttoned up. They're not kidding. You'd never know these are on here unless someone told you and you looked in that little gap right there. One last thing, make sure once you get it all on there, you totally clean the heat shields. You know, you don't want any of your residue or oil or anything on there before you fire up the bike. That way you don't want to end up staining that chrome. So I'm going to fire it up and do a temperature check. I'll show you that. All right, folks, so I've got it up and running. Got it up to operating temperature. You can see it. Let's see if we can get a reading here. That's a good about 20 degrees cooler than what we were at before we did the install on the rear. I'd say the front header pipe's not a whole lot different, maybe a little bit less, but definitely this rear one, I probably gained about 20 degrees cooler with this insulation. So anything you do to reduce that, like I say, anything you can do to reduce that heat on your right leg's a ticket. So I'll have to get out and ride and see how much different I feel. That was temperature without my fan running, that cool flow fan I told you about. And that's just sitting here after letting it get up to idle. So far so good. Well, road test will give me a little bit more, but I'll take 20 degrees less on my leg every day. Thanks for watching.